Our setup determines the totality of our lives, and philosophy is good at examining the stuff. So far, so good. Let's bring the setups to the court. But who is the first defendant? With which setup should we begin and why? To answer this question, let's see what we need as the first setup. I have shown you that setups are practically vital in determining our lives, but I haven't shown you yet that we need any sophisticated theory to find the right one. See, the problem is, one could say that the proper setup could be and should be revealed without any sophisticated nonsense. A setup that is against philosophy, period. Flipping us off. Why? Because this setup is against categories, against our unnecessary and dangerous conceptual intervention, as our immediate passive connection to the world and absorption in the here and now will give us everything we need. You want to know what the self is? What the world is? What is valuable? Search no further. Just be present. You will see it all. This is not gonna work. Hence, I have a channel. But it is indeed good to start from there, because we can make sure we don't introduce anything unnecessarily complicated to the picture. Yet it is still unclear how could we show this setup is not going to work. And if this is not going to work, then how should we switch to a better setup? Imagine a priest confronting an atheist hedonist. The priest goes on and tells the other that they should stop what they're doing in their lives. Why? The hedonist asks. And if the priest says, oh, because God says so, they would just say, get lost. Because the priest here is just using a standard to evaluate the hedonist's setup that is not recognized by the hedonist as a legitimate standard. This story could be the other way around, with the same problem. And this is the reason most of the so-called debates on religion end up being practically futile. The confronting sides just keep shouting they have different standards and therefore just talk past each other. So, what could we do? How could we properly attack a setup? Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot. There is no right and wrong. We should respect everyone's beliefs, because everything is relative. So let's turn off the lights, make a smoothie, and whistle in the dark.
No, no, no.
We can do better than that. The lesson here is you cannot properly criticize a setup from outside by using an alien standard. You can, however, go inside, so to speak, and find some sort of a self-contradiction in the position. A crack, something wrong with the setup based on its own standard. Showing how the priest or the hedonist fall short on their own terms, not based on a standard they don't recognize as legitimate. This is the method for going after any setup here. The first one, the anti-philosophy position, included. Figuring out what's the deal with this setup, we will look for and find a fundamental flaw in it, a self-undermining crack. Once we find that, we know that the setup is not coherent based on its own standard. We should move on. How? Well, we have the clue. Let's get rid of that fundamental flaw. Let's modify the setup to the extent that is immune to such a flaw. That's our second setup. Then, we do the same thing with the second setup, and so on. Think of the whole thing as a trial and error process. Testing the setup, finding a fundamental, self-undermining error in it, fixing the error by modifying the setup, moving to the new setup, testing it out, realizing the modified setup has a different major error in it, modify it again, and so on. The important point is, at each step of trial and error process, we don't just get rid of the flaws, but learn from the particular failures of each setup we deal with. The progress here is made through remembering the reasons for the failure of each setup that we experience in our attempt to make sense of the world and our values. We try, we fail. We try again. We fail again. But we fail better, much better. The ultimate goal here is not to eliminate failure, but to reach a setup that doesn't disintegrate because of its failures. Meaning, a failure-enduring setup. We have everything we need to get started. Philosophy here is the lively investigation of the setups we consciously or unconsciously adopt in our lives, as individuals or communities. Worldviews and value standards that shape us, but are uncritically accepted by most of us. This video series is called An Odd Introduction to Philosophical Thinking, and not Introduction to Philosophy, to emphasize this approach. The goal here is not to gather some information about different schools of philosophy, but to reach a certain level of conceptual maturity. Maturity here doesn't mean immunity to failures, but having the coherent but extremely flexible setup that could endure conceptual failures consistently. Conceptual maturity is, therefore, freedom from any form of dogmatism. If you're interested in going through an introductory journey of philosophical thinking, stick to this video series, ordered in numbers and placed in one playlist. For each of these videos, I will have other related videos, going through a more serious related text, an everyday instance of the philosophical problem we're dealing with, a relevant historical event, and so on. As a concrete example, related to the second video of the series on the anti-philosophy setup, I will have a video on Gauguin's paintings. You can find the related videos in the description of each video in this series. If you're interested to know more about the structure of this channel, and also how much I'm in debt to my dead friend Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel in coming up with the introductory series, check out the link below in the description. Lastly, no formal background in philosophy is required to understand what I'm talking about, but 3 important virtues, so to speak, are definitely essential. First, curiosity. Your level of curiosity must go beyond puppy videos, happy hours, Amazon's deal of the day, Papa John's buy one get one coupon, and the next fucking iPhone. Let's concern ourselves with something better. Second, patience. Don't hurry too much to make everything instantly practical, and don't fall prey to cognitive ease. Some fellows freak out soon. Oh, what? Oh, this is not coding. Oh, I can't apply this right now. What else could I do? Well, breathe. Without patience, you will get stuck in a very easily accessible but narrow practical world. With patience and effort, you will break out that little word and see the other interesting possibilities. Third, courage is a must. For very good reasons, we are good at appreciating physical courage, but we are far too blind to the importance of intellectual courage. Challenging anything we take for granted, any idea, ideal, and idol. And here, the challenging begins and ends at you, my friend, not some vague enemy out there. Loosen up your beliefs and get ready to face your own failures. Only with such attitude this channel could make any sense. So, all of old, it's your call. You stay in your comfort zone and forget about this channel. The story ends, you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You subscribe. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. So, what are we waiting for?